And we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode number 133. This is, what did I call this? Independence Day Open Q&A. I don't know if there'll be much of a queue for this. You guys probably have a lot better things to do rather than hang out with me. Hey, Russell. So as you're logging in, if you'd be in from and hit the like button, and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you would like to support the program, you know, you can visit JKDRebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and check out what we offer. And if you're catching the final edit video over on the YouTube, well, then be sure to hit the like button over there as well, subscribe, and feel free to comment too. I don't get a whole lot of comments. Everybody likes to do their commenting here on Facebook. Right? We don't get too much commented. All right, I just realized something. I gotta turn on one more camera. Right, guys, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I have a little backup camera that gives me a different point of view. All right, so like I said, you know, if you want to hang out and talk JKD, so let me see. Here's what if Bob Landers, because Bob's always here. Bob, can you just, because I'll keep an eye on the comments and what have you. Bob, what the heck is, when you say we can discuss Pak Sao, with Bob Landers, you never know what the hell is going on, right? Bob, is Pak Sao your nickname for somebody in particular? Because we're never sure. And Terry Valor, Terry said something about doing, what about using silat warm-up exercises to stretch and get the body used to moving its own way on the ground? And he showed a video from one of Eric Paulson's camps. So, I mean, I took a look at that video, Terry, and I mean, yeah, it's a valid enough warm-up, especially if you're going to be doing a fair amount of grappling stuff, which is what I imagine they were doing. They were getting ready and warming up for at Combat Submission Wrestling conference. So what I like about it is that it's kind of a head to toe thing, right? Even if it is dedicated, let's say, to more towards the grappling element. And then Bob Landers, of course, chimed in and talked about the Superfoot warm-up. So I know that Bob has been the past few weeks or so, Bob has been participating in Bill Superfoot Wallace's online. I think he's doing an online thing, right? So that too is a valid a valid warm-up. I mean, it's all. I seem to recall that Bruce Lee said that sometimes the best warm-up for the activity is like a slow motion performance of the activity itself, or words to that effect, right? So I think if you're going to be boxing, then probably some kind of boxing warm-up would be more appropriate than doing a lot of ground stuff like what they did in that silat warm-up, if that makes sense, Terry. All right. Then somebody else said, oh, Mark Stewart had said something about a multi-guest thing, like Hollywood Squares. Right. So yeah, so actually, Mark, you should see that maybe within a month or so. I have something special planned for that. Right. And John Overall said something about Yeah, he thinks much more highly of me and my connections than I do. But it's a valid comment, John, and I will take it under consideration, because yeah, I think it's a hell of a challenging prospect. So that's what makes it intriguing and worthwhile, right? So thanks very much for that encouragement, Mr. Overall. That was mighty kind of you. All right, so that's what I had. Okay, and then Patricia Kamisato had said something about Bruce Lee's training methods, and Bruce Lee was a genius in various facets, very important how he polished and sharpened his tools. Yeah, so I mean, there's no. I actually got a question today, and about what was it? Let me try to remember. Somebody wanted specific details on Bruce Lee, how long Bruce Lee trained every day, like how many hours he trained or whatever, and you know, just for stuff like that, I had an online conversation with John Little just the other day, and you know, he made the point that all of the information that you could hope for is pretty much chronicled now, either through his own books or on the YouTube or what have you. So I sent this person, included in my answer was the suggestion that you take a look at the training information available in Jeet Kune Do Commentaries on the Martial Way, and then also in The Art of Expressing the Human Body, right? Okay, so let me take a look at what's come in since we've, so who's out there? Russell and Terry, I already mentioned. Bob Lander says he's here with Mexican Coke and steak. All right. Hey, Daryl White. Audi Barger's here. Hey, Tavis. And Tai Huang up in Seattle as well. Okay. Oh, Russell, you made a purchase over at Rebel Gear. All right, thanks much. Cameron Rico, what's happening? All right, so and there's Kos from the UK. Got the Paxel reference. Yeah, see, you know something about that Paxel reference, Kos, that I don't. Brooks Long is here. Paul Johnson, trapping, is it important? Paul Johnson, trapping is important to the people to whom it is important. I'll just say that. Right, see, you knew exactly where I was going with that. So Audi says that trapping is very important, and then Paul says not to some. So Paul, I don't know if that was a trick question, like if you already knew the answer that you had or that you wanted, you just wanted to see whether or not we would have the same answer. Anyhow, shadowboxing helps, right? 6 1-hour live lessons from a world-class master expert. Yeah. Hey, Bob, did you train with him before, like back in the old days, live or anything? That I'd like to know. Hey, Mr. Porter. Warm-up should be about recruiting motor units, so a slow light version of the activity to perform there. Yeah, exactly, right? I don't remember where it was that I read it. It's probably somewhere on the Tao, in the pages of the Tao, right? Superfoot also fights strong side forward, so it contributes to a JKD structure. Yeah, but I think he fights left lead, even though that is his strong side or whatever. Anyhow, hey Joey, right? John Little's books are incredible. I would agree, right? Oh, okay, so you did train with him, but more so with Joe Louis. All right, got it. Yeah, I never trained with Joe Louis, but I did get to train with Bill Wallace a little bit, not a whole lot. Okay, so Terry says stand-up wrestling is a great method of trapping. Well, if we consider that the classical or classic definition of trapping is a movement which temporarily let me try to get it right. Kevin Porter is not going to be impressed if I can't get it right. Right? Okay, so classic definition of trapping is a movement which temporarily immobilizes the right. Right, yeah, Richard Torres. I was trying to remember. He messed up his right knee or something in judo or something, I think, right? Now, okay, so Paul, what you're saying about the Thai clinch being a lot better, what is the purpose of the Thai clinch, right? It's to continue an aspect of the fight. I don't know if in JKD, do you think in JKD that we are concerned with clinching and staying in the clinch for as long as boxers or even Thai fighters might stay in the clinch? Because I remember in the old days when a critique, an observation, and a critique thereof of the clinch was that the referee would always come in and break up the fighters. So people used to talk, you know, you had to have an understanding of what to do in the clinch. But when I think about clinch, I don't know if I think about staying in the clinch for a really long time and going clinch fighting versus clinch fighting. I think I might be more oriented towards getting myself out of the clinch by striking as opposed to going clinch versus clinch, right? Jeff Welch says that it felt more comfortable when he transitioned to his strong side forward. Yeah, okay, all right. So let me go back to this thing here. Mark Stewart says clinch to get behind the guy, and Audi says that Joe Louis. Yeah, you know, I think that one of the worst things that happened in the JKD world was where trapping took on a life of its own, so much so that for a period of time there was something called you know how there was the Jeet Kune Do Grappling Association. For a short period of time, there was something called the Jeet Kune Do Trapping Association, if I remember correctly. But like I was saying, trapping seems to have taken on, at one point, a life of its own. And then all of these, to a certain degree, intricate sequences, not too intricate, but definitely some convoluted stuff instead of the, right. So yeah, thank you, Randy. That's what I meant to say. The complex trapping, right? Or the compound trapping or combination trapping or what have you. Yeah, it's fun, but it's not realistic. So, but unfortunately, depending on who you're dealing with, there are a lot of people who seem to think that the more complex the trapping is, the funner it is, but then perhaps the more it shows what you know or what you're able to do or what have you, and it just doesn't. It doesn't. A lot of it just doesn't make any sense. But the basic pull and hit, the basic push and hit, you don't really go too wrong with that stuff. Someone Thai clinched Ted Wong to see how he could get out of it. Ted head-butted him on the chest and knocked the guy down. Everyone laughed at the guy. Yeah. See, so that's what I was talking about, Richard. In clinch for clinch, because what's like a JKD maxim, right? You don't box a boxer and you don't kick a kicker, right? You try to go outside of their skill with your own thing, which of course does emphasize that you should have a well-rounded ability. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. A guy who is more skilled, don't try to clinch with him. Use something else. And Sifu Ted, I think, is that's an example. That story, Richard, is an example of him literally and figuratively using his head to get himself out of a situation, right? Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was an instinct. Be surprised if it was actually something that Ted Wong had actually thought about and maybe even trained a little bit in case it ever happened, and then it happened to happen, and there we go, right? Harold, hey, Harold Hankerson, clinches are wonderful for controlling transitioning to trapping. Transitioning to trapping. I don't know, Harold. Off the top of my head, it seems to me that I would have immobilized somebody's arms to get to the clinch, or have blasted through to get to the clinch, rather than the. Let me read this again. Clinches are wonderful for control and transitioning to trapping. I don't know if I agree about the transition into trapping, Harold. I think you meant it the other way around, that trapping is good for control and transitioning. I think to the clinch. I think that's what you meant, right? But what do I know? Okay. In Junfan trapping works when close in. I use it a lot out of the club doors when people would only be a foot or two away. Okay, all right. So that now, the discussion that we had the other day about, remember when who was it? It's Steve Mosley over on Bruce Lee's The Only Dragon. So Steve put up the famous picture of Bruce Lee doing like a bar arm and a crescent kick to the head, and he captioned it "kick in range," right? And so that started a whole, one of our famous Facebook Jeet range. So then chimed in, and ultimately we got down to the idea of the fact that there's long range, middle range, and close quarter, and then kicking, punching, trapping, and grappling are skills that can be performed at those three ranges. So when you say, Terry, that Junfan trapping works when close in, see, this is the thing. If trapping is, again, the classic definition, the temporary immobilization of the opponent's limb, then it's possible there can be a thing called long range trapping. If I'm out here at the end of somebody's extended jab and I hit the simultaneous paksaw and hit back, that's long range trapping. If I get the trap up here on their elbow, that might be middle range trapping. And then if I get all the way past somebody the shoulder and I can shift it and off balance them that way or whatever, maybe we could consider that close quarter trapping. I'm just here to tease people with ideas, right? But however it is, Terry, that it worked for you out the club doors, then that means that it's effective in that range for you, or at that distance, probably better to say. Bob Landers, how about the Bob? Cut that out, right? Randy says there's a counter to a technique and there's a counter to the counter. Counter to the counter is choreography. Yes. Yes, right? So Randy, I like that, right? So the way, one of the ways that we express it is, there's an old Filipino Kali, at least I got it out of Filipino Kali. Who the heck knows where it came from? But there's a thing about learn the technique, practice the technique. And then I actually have 3 versions of this, so I'll give you one version, right? Which is put it into the flow, add the counter, add the recounter. And we always used to make a joke at my school about if you're fighting somebody and they can easily counter what you do, or vice versa, you can easily counter what they do, then you should become friends, right? As a matter of fact, that reminds me of I'm going to do my own ADHD thing here. That reminds me of a question that I got one time about a hypothetical about John Wick and who would win in a fight between John Wick and Jason Bourne. And I said, well, they would probably end up countering each other because John Wick is trained by Chad Stahelski and Jason Bourne is trained by Jeff Amada. So they would probably realize that their fighting styles are similar, and then they would stop fighting each other and become good friends and then do some spy missions together or something, right? Okay, I think that's funny. But yeah, Randy, that's really funny. A counter to the counter to the counter is choreography. Then the guy really did not know anything about the clinch. Paul, that's an absolute statement, man. And I don't know that you could, you know, if somebody tries to clinch somebody and somebody else gets out of the clinch, you cannot say then the guy whose clinch failed didn't really know anything about the clinch, because that would mean that any time that the clinch happens, nobody ever counters it. Nobody ever gets out of it. So to say that if Ted Wong was able to get out of a clinch using a headbutt or whatever, that the guy didn't really know anything, that's not true. The guy might know a lot. He might have been having an off day. Maybe Ted Wong's timing was too good in that instant. Ted Wong's speed was too good. But to just say, oh, if somebody got out of the clinch, that's like saying, if I get hit, if I get punched in the face, I don't really know anything about defending against punches in the face. Everybody gets hit. So to say that the guy really didn't know anything about the clinch because his clinch failed, that means nobody would ever fail. That means, by extension, Paul, that nobody that ever fought would ever get beaten. Nobody would ever get beaten in a fight. If you know anything, but listen to this statement, then the guy really did not know anything about the clinch. That means if I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I get into a fight with another black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and one of us loses, it means then, based on that statement, Paul, that the guy who lost is not really a black belt level in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, right? I love the clinch, but developed it beyond Muay Thai methods. What is Paksao? All right. Okay. All right. So I'm trying to keep up with you guys. Ted, about headbutt to chest in close range. Bruce believed he could stop a heart with a powerful headbutt. Okay. Right. Okay, Randy, I'm going to take an issue. I'm going to take an issue with you here, right? But if we could get Alex Richter to weigh in on this. So, Paksao Da is superfluous, right? This is my understanding. So, Pak is the shape. Sao is the Paksao is the slapping hand. But if I'm going to hit off the Paksao, it becomes Pak Da, not Paksao Da, right? I'm just being picky here, trying to extend the time of this open Q&A, Randy. Right? Okay, but Randy, that's interesting. A party with a simultaneous hit. That would be fun, right? Okay. Neck clinch to overhook and underhook work in a transition. Yeah. Yeah. You get clinch. Okay. Remember, you get clinch on, you drop elbows and knees. Okay. All right. So I keep forgetting. My student Miguel gets on my case all the time because he'll say something to me and he'll go, well, can't you just look it up on your I don't have that on my phone. Because like there's an app for it, right? So I keep forgetting that a lot of times you guys are doing this stuff on your phone, whereas I'm on my computer. So sometimes I have to read what you write because, you know, those little buttons on the phone, you might not actually type out English, right? So parry, not party, right? Okay, Paul, I don't understand. Remember, you get clinch on, you drop elbows and knees. Okay, I'm not sure if I understand what you're saying, right? Okay, trapping is more than close range, blah, 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 blah. Okay, there are 5 ways of attack, not 4 HIA. Richard, did somebody say something about 5 ways of attack and I missed it in the comment feed? Or is that something I said? Because I don't think we were talking about the 4 ranges, and I was saying that there's 3 ranges and 4 skills. So I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Hey, Carlos Gonzalez, if the clinch is on properly, there's no room to headbutt his chest. Oh, I see. Well, see, okay, but Paul, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. In any situation, there's the Bermuda factor, okay? There's always the BDA factor. So there's before the technique is fully on, there's the transition to fully on, the during part of the technique, and then there's the after part of the technique when the technique is fully on. So that's why I said, if Ted Wong was able to headbutt a guy who was trying to put him in the clinch, it could be because of, well, I'll tell you, look, it would be a bunch of things. One, Ted Wong's mindset, for sure, right, to not get clinched, but also the timing of it. So it's very possible that Ted Wong was able to hit this guy with the headbutt during section of the clinch, not after the clinch was fully on. See, if you say, and listen to what you said, Paul, if the clinch is on properly, that is the after portion of the technique. That is not the before portion or the during portion. That is the after portion. So I would agree with you. If the clinch is on properly, there's no room to headbutt his chest. But the mere fact, see, so this is how you should have dealt with, I'm giving you advice, right? This is how you should have dealt with Richard's statement. Read what he says and then examine in your own mind, well, how could that have happened? And that's where I came up with the idea that it is probably down to Ted Wong's ability to time stuff, his reflex speed or reaction speed or whatever, right? So, but you're right. Who knows? Ted Wong would have else other than a headbutt if the guy had gotten the clinch fully on. But obviously, the guy didn't. Doesn't mean that the guy doesn't know how to clinch. It just means that, like Larry Hartzell would, I think it was Larry Hartzell, that Larry Hartzell used to say, sometimes the bear gets you, sometimes you get the bear. Bob Landers gets the Mexican Coke all the time, right? 5 ways of attack is no big deal. There are missing options and the 5 run together. So if you understand the overall approach to attacking, it's unnecessary. It's useful to introduce a beginner who doesn't grasp the concepts. Ted Wong didn't focus on it. Okay, well, I mean, Ted Wong, Bob, it was free to focus on whatever he wanted to focus on, but there are missing options. I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by missing options, Bob. But I'll tell you this, right? Here's why I consider the 5 ways of attack. Here's why I consider them to be a big deal, because before, as far as I know, before Bruce Lee, which is why I did a blog post a long time ago about proprietary language in Jeet Kune Do, because I don't think that before us in Jeet Kune Do, people out there in the martial art world were talking about ranges of combat. I don't recall that. I don't remember any time that the time that I spent in Wushu Quan, the time that I spent in Kyokushin, the time that I spent in Shotokan, the time that I spent in Chito Ryu. I don't remember anybody talking about ranges of combat. Ranges of combat is a thing that I came across when I started JKD study. 5 ways of attack. I don't remember anybody talking about a finite amount of attack methods anywhere in my martial arts study outside of Jeet Kune Do. You in that regard, Bob, it is a big deal, and here's why. It's our stuff. Now everybody has appropriated it, of course, right? But to the best of my knowledge, that kind of language originates in the JKD clan, and for that simple reason, I would say it's a big deal, right? And so the 5 run together. So of course the 5 run together, right? But that's like, there are 5 kids in my family, okay? So you would look at them and you'd go, oh, those are the Woods kids, because the 5 run together. But each of us is an individual, right? So there are times where the individual aspect is what we're focusing on. And then there are times when the general aspect, right, is what we might be focusing on. So if it's useful to introduce a beginner who doesn't grasp the concept. Okay, well, exactly, right? Because remember this, we have the stages of a technique, or the stages of cultivation, or the stages of development, or what have you. So we cannot expect everybody who is starting out in JKD to understand all of the sophisticated concepts. So of course, sometimes you have to delineate. Sometimes you have to separate stuff and go, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this, and this is this. And then at some point later in the program, it goes like this, right? So it is a big deal, Bob, right? Okay. At a Ghost seminar, Phil Norman taught trapping as a long-range skill. Well, Russell, I would say that he taught it as a long-range skill for the purposes of a Ghost seminar, because he was using, if you were working kicking to trapping to boxing, right, then he would have to show it as long range or even middle range for that specific purpose, because we're working it from kicking to trapping to boxing. That would be it. Ted Wong weaved and headbutted the guy's chest. The guy knew his stuff about Thai boxing, but exactly. See, you see, Paul, right? Richard says the guy knew his stuff, but he didn't expect that reaction. Why? Because I'll say it again. It's almost as if Ted Wong and I were really close. We were very good friends. Maybe I trained with him secretly, and none of you guys know that. Ted Wong did what? He didn't clinch a clincher. He went to his stuff, which is mobility and agility and striking. He didn't look, we were talking about this in class, after class. I think it was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday night, right? Here's what happens a lot of times. You see the guy who, the guy, so the guy's a boxer, and he's like a technician. He's like a technical boxer. And the guy that he's fighting is the slugger. And the slugger happens to get a lucky shot in. And the technical boxer loses his mind and then tries to slug with the slugger. Your chances of outslugging a slugger, if that's not your way, might not be that great. Maybe what you do is to step back, compose yourself, and get back onto the plan, the fight plan of being a technician against the slugger. Don't lose your mind. So if you're not a clincher, don't all of a sudden, oh, he's clinching me. Stick to your own skills. You stick to your own plan. And I think that's what Ted Wong did. Don't let Paul ruffle your feathers. Oh, no, not at all, Audie. Thanks for the concern, but no. I don't get ruffled by anybody in the JKD world, especially if we're having a discussion or something. I love it all, and I will talk to not everybody, but I will talk to almost everybody. So I'm not ruffled, but thanks for the concern, Audie. Okay, no, not really. Wait, I got something. Oh shoot, I lost. Wait, hold on, hang on. I lost what we were talking about. Okay. Move. Okay. No, not really. Depends on how good you are at the clinch. You're a Thai instructor, Richard Torres, were you there then, right? Okay. So yeah. Well, again, I'm not sure what the no, not really part refers to, Paul, because there is no technique. What is the Bruce Lee saying? Richard Torres, help me out here. Bruce Lee said words to the effect that any technique becomes a something when the mind is obsessed with it. So, Paul, if that's what you're talking about, depends on how good you are at the clinch. Again, I don't care who it is, unless it's somebody who has never, ever been beaten. If they have never, ever been beaten, then I think he said becomes a disease when the mind is obsessed with any technique, any technique, no matter how desirable, becomes a disease when the mind is obsessed with it. Okay, hopefully Richard Torres will know that quote by heart, right? A Mexican quote. Okay, so listen, I'm having a hard time keeping up with you guys, all right? You're going to be hidden in the clinch, not just trying to control him. Okay, cool. All right, cool. All right. Ted Wong had knuckles as hard as steel. And I know why, Bob Landers. I know why Ted Wong had knuckles as hard as steel, right? Maybe even harder than steel, Bob Landers. Hang on a sec. A big missing option would be a broken rhythm attack. So that's not a missing option. A broken rhythm attack would be contained in simple attack, would be contained or could be contained in attack by combination. Could be contained. Bob, a broken rhythm attack can be applied to all of the 5. That's not a missing element. It's right there in the thing. Come on. Bruce Lee gave them names. They're in all martial arts. Yes, Paul, he did. And I'm not saying that they don't exist in all martial arts. What I'm saying is that before Bruce Lee came across anybody who had analyzed the crap out of it and came up with specific finite names and for these concepts. I'm not saying that they exist only in Jeet Kune Do. That would be beyond ludicrous. But Bruce Lee gave them names. To me, that's a big deal, right? JKD is based on half beat, broken rhythm. Yes, Bob. So if JKD is based on half beat and broken rhythm, right, 3.5 beat and all that stuff, and then Bruce Lee says there are 5 ways of attack, is it not then elementary that broken rhythm, half beat, and whatever would be found in said attack? A buzzword. Okay. All martial arts styles discuss range. That's nothing new. Depends on how old you are, Tony. Right? I'm kidding. Right? Everybody in Filipino martial arts, we're always discussing range, close range, and producing is not new. No. Okay. All right. Okay. So Tony, nothing. Of course, range is not new. Okay. Of course, range is not new. Let me say what I said again. Let me repeat what I said. In my experience, before JKD, nobody talked about ranges of combat. Okay? Now, of course, it's not new now. We are in the 43rd year. Is it? 53rd. I don't even know. How many years since Bruce Lee named it, what, 67? So we're in the 53rd year of Bruce Lee giving a name to his idea and what have you. I would think that within 53 years, That means that a 33-year-old instructor of Shotokan karate, right? So the guy's 33 years old, and he's talking about fighting ranges. Of course he's talking about fighting ranges in 2020 because it's now been adopted into their approach. All I'm saying is that way back when, I didn't hear anybody talking about ranges of combat. So it was only in JKD. It would not be a new thing in 2020. No way. It wouldn't even be a new thing in 1983 when I joined in the Sano, and it definitely would not be a new thing in Filipino martial arts. I'll show you something, right? This is, you want to talk about ranges? So this is the thing that talks about the 6 fighting ranges of Filipino Kali, right? So yeah, and this is, I don't even know when this is from, right? Okay, so yeah, so ranges is not a thing, right? Okay, Bruce discovered it to be a flawed model and discarded it. People now use it as a buzzword. The 5, Bob, are you talking about the 5 ways of attack, right? Even so, see, this is the thing. So if Bruce Lee discovered the 5 ways of attack to be a flawed model, we have to discover that for ourselves too. So I think that because Bruce Lee may have discovered it to be a flawed model doesn't mean that everybody en masse, right, should discard it. Because if it's making sense and if it's being utilized by people, then you keep it, right? People now use it as a buzzword. I think that's what you mean, right? Okay. Dwight needs a Mexican coat. Now, man, I got my own Mexican coat right here. Right here. Okay, trapping hands is part of hand and... No. Richard said, wait, let me read this again. Trapping hands is part of hand immobilization attack. If you get rid of trapping, you get rid of hand immobilization attack. So then you will only have 4 ways, 5 ways. I don't get that. Trapping hands is part of immobilization attack. Within immobilization attack, there's hand and foot immobilization. So if you get rid of trapping hands, if you get rid of hand immobilization, you would still have foot immobilization. So you would still have the 5 ways. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm not sure what you mean, Richard. People like, if you want to use the 5 ways of that, I mean to make it sound like they know something. Well, Bob, as somebody who gets on the internet twice a week and talks a lot about Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do, I can't really fault anybody for trying to make it look as if they know something. I do that all the time. I do that for a living, right? Look, look, I'm as big a fan, well, no, I'm not the biggest Bruce Lee fan that there is, but I really do think that we should, you know what it's like? You know how there are people out there right now trying to knock down, literally and figuratively, trying to knock down American history, the history of the United States? If we start going, oh, this thing is not a big deal. Oh, that thing is not a big deal. Oh, everybody has that. Oh, whatever. And we erase the history of how we came to this point. Yeah, then Jeet Kune Do will fade away, because what we will have done is that we'll be doing the whole, right? So that's like saying the United States is nothing special because, let's see. Yeah, Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do are nothing special because everybody has the same impact on the world at large as Bruce Lee did. When it comes to martial arts, everybody has the same impact as Bruce Lee. Does that sound smart? Right? Hey, this other guy over my right. We say that in the world of music, and then microcosmically in the world of reggae music, and we go, yeah, Bob Marley is no big deal. Everybody in the reggae world of music had the same impact, the same worldwide impact as Bob Marley. No. Forget it. That is that's ridiculous, right? Religious JKD people consider 5 days to be like the 10 Commandments. Well, that's up to them, Bob. If they want to look at it that way, you know, let them look at it that way. Disease. Paul Johnson knows. Okay. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Bob, so I will not touch that. I would never telegraph putting a clinch on. Well, good, Paul. You probably shouldn't telegraph anything that you're trying to put on somebody, right? Okay, Bruce Lee is a disease to some people. Okay, whatever. Shad Scott says something Bruce took from Krishnamurti. I'm way behind you guys in reading the comments because I'm reading and talking, Shad. So I'm not sure if you could put back in the comments what exactly you're referring to, so that I can, as I keep scrolling down, I can get to it, right? Something Bruce took from Krishnamurti. Yeah, well, Bruce Lee took a fair amount of stuff from Krishnamurti. In fact, I've heard that it was somewhat due to Jita Krishnamurti's influence that the whole idea of Jeet Kune Do not being a style and moving away from Bruce Lee as being a style, that some of that was as a direct influence of Krishnamurti, right? Okay, the 5 can be applied to the 5. I don't know what you guys are talking about. All right. Are you aware Cedro Bruce had a game similar to our hand slap game for reflexes? Instead of hitting the gouge, said it is. Yeah, I know that there was a thing with the hands and what have you. Yes, he lifted the 5 methods from fencing. All right, Chad, you're confusing me. So even if the 5, well, I mean, so what do we know about Jeet Kune Do history? We know that fencing, right, played an integral part in the development of Bruce Lee's ideas. So if he took the sword aspect of fencing and applied it to, let's say he applied it to the lead hand aspect of Wing Chun, I think that's genius. Because as far as I know, nobody else did that. Nobody else thought of it that way before Bruce Lee. So I'm down with that. That's like genius to me. Why isn't there a successive simple attack? A successive simple attack. You mean a series of simple attacks, Bob Landers? Because between the attacks, the simple attacks, then that would be attack by combination, wouldn't it? Right? Guru Phil did as part of Ghost Training methodology. Closer range was interesting in doing sports, so it helps, or at least help me train it. Right, exactly. Right. It's not mentioned in 5 ways holy scriptures. I don't know what the heck y'all are talking about. Right. Okay, so Tony, I know that you're not a young whippersnapper. I'm quite aware of that. Any technique, however worthy and desirable. See, I was almost on, Richard. I was almost on. Becomes a disease when the mind is obsessed with it, right? If there's 5 ways of attack and 3 ranges, are there 15 ways of attack? Oh, God. No, Bob, right? And if we add broken rhythm, could there be 30 ways of attack? Yes, Bob, yes. There can be 15 ways of attack until you add broken rhythm, and then you get 30. And you know why? Because I'm adding what is specifically my own. So my Jeet Kune Do is better than yours, Bob, because you don't even make a big deal of the 5 ways of attack, and I have 30 ways of attack. So there, how you like me now? My Jeet Kune Do is better than yours. Five ways of attack, or a JKD man's Bible. Where do I find that article on the 6 ranges in FMA? Russell, I have no idea, but talk to Glenn. Glenn might be able to Glenn might be able to rustle you up a copy faster than I could. So talk to him, right? If you had foot immobilization, no, Bob. Simple attack, direct and angular or angulated. Attack by combination, attack by drawing, immobilization attack, upper body limbs, lower body limbs, right? Hand and foot, okay? And progressive indirect attack. 5, that's it, okay? So there's not 6 ways. No, we're not adding foot immobilization. Foot is part of immobilization. That's what is summary along the way, historical. There are things Bruce Lee threw out and later was unearthed in his notes. Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing, right? See, Bob? Throwing stuff out. Here's how it happens. At a particular time, okay, so last night in class, I was telling Spielberg that let me try to get it right. I was telling him that you could find video of me on the YouTube doing stuff that I no longer do. So I explained to him that if you see that video from 1988 or something, that video is now reference material. It's not training material because I no longer do stuff that way. So same thing with Bruce Lee. How did Bruce Lee end up throwing stuff out? Because at one point in his development, it was a thing. And then as he evolved, as he continued to evolve, or a thing. So he threw it out. I don't think that it is, I think that's something that we should all be going through in our own personal JKD development, as opposed to trying to come in at the top where all I'm doing is all the stuff that Bruce Lee threw out. I mean, well, yeah, not that there's not anything wrong with that. If you happen to come, if when you start training, you happen to train under somebody who is at that point, right? So so let's say you start training under somebody who is latter stage Jeet Kune Do or what have you. Wrong with that. But there's certain stuff that you might not ever be aware of, right? So like the reference material is what I'm talking about, right? And then there are just people who like to know as much as they can about everything. So it's like, if I admire Bruce Lee, if I admire Bob Marley, and okay, no, let me put it this way. So right now, there's a 4-part legacy series documentary on Bob Marley that you can find on the YouTube. And we know that, what, a month ago, there was the latest Bruce Lee documentary. So let's say that I am a newbie and I become enchanted by Bruce Lee and Bob Marley as a result of these 2 recent documentaries. And all I do is to base my liking for them on those 2 documentaries. I don't look up anything else, right? I don't do any history or any research on Bob Marley, where he was born and a child. Bruce Lee, where he was born, where he grew up. None of that. No. I love Bob Marley and Bruce Lee from, where are we? July. from mid 2020. And that's how deeply I love them. And that's how deep I want to know about them. I want to know ESPN's 30-30-30 documentary. I watched it 10 times. Bob Marley Legacy documentary. I watched it 10 times because I so love them. Let me stop this because I feel like I'm talking to myself. Anyhow, right? My perspective comes from Ted Wong, who was there at the end. Okay, right. So, Bob, here's the deal. You say your perspective came from Ted Wong, who was there with Bruce Lee at the end. But the end is not all that there was to Bruce Lee. So, there we go. There are things Bruce Lee, right? Okay. The disease quote was taken from Krishnamurti. Okay. All right. Thanks, Shad. Zayn Isaacs, what's happening? Well, the best way to win a fight is to reach out and knock him out. Yes, Leif, I heard that once. I thought that was the coolest thing. Just reach over and knock the guy out, right? Not reading a bunch of random notes. Okay, Bob, geez, get off it, right? Bruce was indeed a genius. I agree, Shad Scott. Or is it a series of single attacks? Because I'm not getting into that. You would have more than 30 ways if you had it, and don't get to do it, whatever. Okay. Russell, oh, okay. So yeah, I don't see that it's a active, it's a clickable link. So you're letting Glenn know. What about the headbutt attack? So an FMA man has 60 ways of attack before he adds what is specifically his own. No, it's the add-in specifically what is his own that he ends up with 60 ways of attack, right? Will the oblique kick, if they keep messing it up, right? I think that my understanding is that there's not supposed to be any direct attack on the joints, right? So if people are kicking the knee itself as opposed to kicking above the knee, right? I don't know. Yeah, it might be. It might end up being banned. I'm just glad to see him doing Bruce Lee stuff in MMA, right? Tony says I saw Bob Marley at. Yeah, well, see, that's because you are an experienced guy. I have that Bob Marley concert in audio. I was in there, right? Terry says probably not, referring to the oblique kick. Okay, Ted Wong didn't know, nor did he care to learn Siddham Tao, nor did Bruce mention him learning it, but people now think it's essential. Bob, let people think what they want to think, right? Whether they met Bruce Lee or not, because Ted Wong did not care and didn't know Siddham Tao, right? But I'll tell you this. Now, I don't know the details of it, or that Ted Wong took a look, and the reason why I'm sure is because I know that he hung with, what's his name? Randy Williams, the Wing Chun guy, Randy Williams. So I think just based on that there was whatever minuscule association between Ted Wong and Randy Williams, I think we could use that as evidence that Ted Wong did not have 100% aversion to Wing Chun or what have you, right? Then in the fighting method, we know, unless they were just posing, in the fighting method books, there are pictures of Ted Wong and Bruce Lee engaging in Chi Sao. So there is the thing that Bruce Lee threw the Chi Sao out towards the end, right? The whole, he said Chi Sao is out to Daniel Lee in a phone conversation or something like that. I don't know, right? But obviously, at some point, Bruce Lee and Ted Wong engaged in Chi Sao, even if towards the end, Chi Sao was out, right? So, doesn't matter if Ted Wong cared or didn't know or whatever. And people who want to fill in their backgrounds with Wing Chun, with fencing, with boxing, with Sunim Tao or whatever, more power to them. All they're doing is trying to get themselves a well-rounded experience. It's when people start pontificating about what's the right approach and whose approach is this and that and whatever, that's when we start crossing over into nonsense. All right. All right. See you later, Audi. Hey, Sean Madigan, what's happening? All right. Okay. Tony says, I saw the 30 and wasn't crazy about it. Had about his art. Right. So that's why, Tony, the whole idea of making an independent documentary, as we call it, that's why that whole idea got launched in this crazy head of mine. The half beat gets it up to 60. Okay. Right. In psychology and neuroscience, we studied the development of psychological thinking and how we got here. But depends the purpose. Yes, exactly. Right. See, because there is nothing that exists today that does not have a history. You see? So if you decide, well, I'm interested in drinking from a tumbler, but I'm only interested in drinking from a tumbler modern day. I have no interest whatsoever, right? So I'm going to do a detailed study of drinking from a tumbler, but only in July of 2020. I have no interest in how tumblers came to be, what the original cup might have been. So I will not do an investigation of the Holy Grail, or I'm kidding, right? History is important because if you want to know where you are and why you are, you got to know where you came from. It is as simple as that. So Ren is saying that in psychology and neuroscience, we studied the development of psychological thinking. Yes, because you cannot come in at the top. You got to come in at the bottom and work your way to the top. It is as simple as that. It's understanding why there are 5 ways that opens things up. Yes, Sean, right? It was a racist. Everybody has their opinion, right? I used a screwdriver today. I am not interested in the history of that tool. Right, because, Ren, you're not interested in the history of the screwdriver because screwdrivering is not that important to you. But the craftsman, the construction guy, a guy who makes his living, right, with screwdrivers, a guy who teaches other people how to use the screwdriver, right? I'm making all this up. He will be interested in the history. You don't have to be. I make my living from martial art, in general, specifically Jeet Kune Do. So of course I am in the historical aspects of Jeet Kune Do. If you had a different profession, if your profession revolved around tools, including the screwdriver, I guarantee you would have an in-depth history and knowledge, an in-depth knowledge of the history of the screwdriver. But see, so you said exactly, you said exactly that, right? Fighting method was in 1967. Okay. Hey, Anthony. The point is, learning Sunim Tao does nothing for you as a JKD man. No, that's incorrect, Bob, right? Because now you're talking in absolutes. You're talking for everybody, right? You mean the point is, for me, Bob Landers, learning Sunim Tao does nothing as a JKD man, okay? Proper structure you should study with Taki Kimura. If you want to learn early stuff in the proper structure, you should study with Taki Kimura, or with anybody else that has. Of course, Taki Kimura is the #1, but there are other people who were recipients of the early stuff, aren't there? mean, I don't think everybody has passed away, so you could get early stuff from them too. I'm sure you could get one in different iterations. Already great. Yeah, Tony. You know, there's pressure. Glass is better than tumbler. That is not true. That is not true, Bob Landers. Glass is not better than tumbler. Henry Phillips researched the screwdriver and invented a better way. The Phillips screwdriver. Thanks, Richard. Right. Okay. All right. So how long have we been on here? Okay, we've been on here talking nonsense for an hour now, right? So I think we will call an end to this show. Let me see if anybody said anything over here on. Nope. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. All right. So, guys, thanks very much for hanging out. And if you're in a part of the world where Independence Day is being celebrated this weekend, even though here in the U.S. our Independence Day celebrations will be quite muted, have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me. I did not make notes for today's program, so I'm fairly sure. I think I have this right. Next Friday with episode 134 will be with Kurt Cornwell out of MKG Detroit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. MKG Detroit. We're a JKD master represent. All right, Richard. Yes, everybody do that. Go out and get yourself a Flying Man COVID mask or what have you. All right. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Have a great week, a great Independence Day weekend, and I will see you guys again soon. All right, take care. Okay, so Ivan asked about this, the attached position, or give me another term for the attached position.
Midpoint.
Reference point.
Reference point. Now, further describe that this particular reference point. Oh, let me borrow you.
Yes,
Give me your right arm,
yes,
without stick.
Yes, sir.
Stand over there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, put your hand up. Okay, this. It's the attached position. It's a reference point, but it is
High outside.
the high outside reference point, or the high outside attached position. Okay, so
As opposed
hit-
to,
as opposed to low outside,
Okay.
as opposed to high inside. Inside. Thank you. All right. Okay. So Ivan's question was, what is that? Right. So if you put it into HC, not Harrison College, where I went to school. If you put it into HC, do you know that phrase? Vinny?
Well, historical context.
Historical context. Okay, so if you put it into historical context, what
Against-
does that represent?
No, against karate. The opposite.
Exactly, right? My attacking with the lead hand and someone responding with somewhat of a classical front hand block response. See? So, come, you be me. I'll be the historical context guy. So he lead hand punches, and I go like this. See the position? He lead punches, I go like this. See the position? Pretty much the high outside reference point. So when you see us do that, when you see it done cinematically in Enter the Dragon, for example, that's theatricizing something. But that's the understanding of it when you put it into historical context. Yeah. So nobody starts a fight like that.
Yeah.
That's just
It's like a
a
reference
convenient.
point to get
It's a reference
from the
point. It's a
trapping or-
convenient starting point.
Understand?
Now, when we are smooth and coordinated with that, which is another way of saying, oh, you didn't learn that one this morning? When I say, when you're smooth and coordinated with something, that really means what? No, that really means when you know what you're doing. Okay? But I don't want to insult anybody. All right? So when you're smooth and coordinated, what do? Instead of attached position, where do we start?
Attacking and defend.
Huh?
Gaining the attention.
Gaining the attachment. That's the next step. And then what do? Capture and flight. Okay? Owen,
Yes, sir.
still here?
Yes, sir.
Let me borrow your arm again.
Yes, sir.
So this would be, let's call it the beginner way, right? An easy way to teach people, for example, to do that. Start like this. They can measure and whatever, right? Another way, or a not so easy way, would be for me to punch and have him do that, and then I go forward. Sorry.
It's more advanced. It's just
Right?
basic.
Yeah, because it takes a little bit more coordination and understanding of what we're doing. The third way is to have him punch at me, and I go like that. You see, we're trying to end up at the same point, but we have, for lack of a better description, beginner, intermediate, and advanced way of dealing with it. You see, that's the breakdown. Okay,
Yes, sir.
are we good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.